it was only because I was misled by someone else. So I can never be found guilty of an intentional misleading of information. So fraudulent, an intent to mislead, negligent misrepresentation, no intent to mislead, and innocent misrepresentation, I'm completely innocent of any charge because I'm merely relaying information. So there's a very big difference between puffing, exaggerating, and misleading information. Any questions about the difference? Okay, not seeing any questions. Let's move on. Avoiding misrepresentation. Well, number one, as a rule of thumb, guys, never present your opinion as fact. It's the surest way to get yourself into trouble. I remember one time in a home inspection, the buyer asked the inspector, "Do you think I'm getting a good deal at this price?" And the inspector said, "In my opinion, I'd be buying 7 or 8 of these. This is the best deal in the world." And I kind of had a snicker under my breath because this guy was paying full price for a house. He could maybe have gotten for a better price if he had took his time and shopped around. The inspector was giving his opinion as fact, and that should never be allowed to pursue. So guys, never state your opinion as fact. Find out the truth. Get the information. And if you don't know something, then always answer the question with, "You know what? I don't know about that. However, if I could find out, would you give me enough time to find out?" That shows generosity. It shows genuineness and your concern to get the truth. Or always refer questions of a specific nature to an expert in that field. How long do you think the septic has, Tim, before it gives out? You know what? I'm not qualified to answer that. How about if we talk to a septic inspector? Maybe they would give us a better idea. I would never present my opinion as fact, and I would always refer questions I can't answer to professionals that can. All right, let's finish up this chapter. New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act prohibits misleading, fraudulent scam practices. And if found guilty, a practitioner of real estate can be fined up to 3 times the amount of the damage incurred. These are called treble damages, 3 times the amount. There are exceptions to the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act, where the licensee had no actual knowledge of something, or a diligent effort was made to learn the truth but couldn't be discovered, or an agent relied on information from a specialist. The building inspector in his written report states this information. If that's not correct, then it's the building inspector, not me. So insulate yourself against the potential of fraud by making sure that if you have an actual knowledge of something, then report the truth. If you don't have actual knowledge, then don't answer the question. Say, "I'll have to look into it." If you make a diligent effort to learn the truth but still can't be discovered, you have to be honest. Guys, I looked 6 different ways to find this information. That's not attainable at this time, apparently. Or if you relied on information from specialists, then speak that way. I relied on information given to me, the so-and-so inspector. He's the one that was the source of that information. Let's go to him for resolution on this. All right, so we've talked a lot about your responsibilities as an agent in New Jersey. So the ethics, the liability, and disciplinable offenses that we have to be concerned about. The number one problem is a breach of fiduciary duties. The COELD, care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, disclosure. If you breached your fiduciary duties, you should be held responsible for your breach of duty. Or if you failed to observe a standard of care, you told someone you could sell their business but didn't know what the hell you were doing, you can ruin them. You should be held responsible for that. If you have a conflict of interest, there's nothing wrong with saying, "You know what? There's a potential conflict of interest here, and I may want to recuse myself and hand this over to another salesperson who would better off suit you to do a better job than I would." In that way, you're being more than honest and by bringing in a different agent or the broker to handle it, you're going to remove yourself from any conflict that may exist. You'll still get credit and payment for the sale. Don't worry. Your broker's going to make sure of that. But never continue in a situation where you know that there's a conflict of interest and people could call you out on it. Obviously, misrepresentation of a fraudulent nature is not acceptable. Now, misrepresentation is never acceptable. But in the case of innocent misrepresentation, where you tried to but couldn't get it or relied on the third party to give you information, that's better than not doing any work at all. And if you are guilty of numerous offenses under this system, this can result in fines, suspension, or revocation of your license. Defense against liability, I mentioned earlier, errors and omissions insurance. Every real estate broker in New Jersey buys errors and omissions insurance. Their premium for that coverage depends on how big of an office it is, how many people work there, the average sales price of a deal, how many deals they do, and all kinds of other things like, are there any certifications, specialists, things like that that could cause your errors and omissions insurance to go up or down. And you will have to pay your broker for your share of errors and omissions insurance. I don't have that number for you. That's each broker has their own system to generate that. So you're going to have to ask your broker how much you're going to have to pay for your errors and omissions insurance. Always avoid dual contracts, and besides, dual contracts are highly illegal. You never want to get involved in dual contracts. A dual contract is something like this. I contract with a seller to buy his house for $100,000. Then I take that same contract and change the 1 to a 2 and give it to my bank. And I slide a few dollars over to the appraiser, who comes up with an appraised value of $200,000. So the bank gives me a $200,000 loan based on a perceived $200,000 value, when in reality it was only $100,000. This fraud, this bank fraud. Bank fraud's a felony. You can go to federal prison for that, and don't do it. Ethical behavior. Yes, by practicing your business ethically, you can remove yourself from all doubt of your character. Any claims of liability, sorry, I do an ethical business and I have never crossed the line regarding that. Your history will prove whether you're ethical or not. So always defend yourself against liability. Make sure you get errors and omissions. Always be ethical in your behavior and never participate in any type of dual contract arrangement. Now, New Jersey has different professional organizations for real estate agents. You're going to join not just your local board of realtors, but the New Jersey realtors as well as the National Association of Realtors, of which, if you join, you can call yourself a realtor, but must pledge to conduct your business according to the code of ethics that I told you was in the back of your book. There's also the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. If you become a broker, you could join. And there's various designations to prove your specialty or your expertise in some area. There are several designations as a new agent you might want to look into. Number one would be the, and on page 54 in your 14th edition textbook, on the bottom, the ABR, the Accredited Buyer's Representative. Folks, I'm going to tell you, buyers are a dime a dozen out there today. They want to work with a knowledgeable, skilled buyer's agent. If you can get your accredited buyer's agent designation, that means you have went through a course that trained you on how to work with buyers, their mindset, their philosophy, their financing, their wants, their needs, desires, their time frames, and everything else. You've been schooled and taught about this, and now you can practice as a very good buyer's agent. Set yourself apart, get a designation. ABR is a very good one. Another one, in some instances, in some areas, you might want to get your SRES, your Senior Real Estate Specialist. If you live in an area and you're doing business where there's many retirement communities or elderly population, by taking this course, you understand the mindset, the spending habits, the income, the philosophy of seniors. the healthcare needs, the living accommodations, the various things that they can offer them in retirement years. Get yourself specialized in a designation, and you may be the go-to person in some areas. Personally, I achieved my GRI designation, Graduate of the Realtor Institute, in 1997. My Graduate Realtor Institute qualifies me as an expert in real estate. I can testify in court as an expert. It also puts me in the top 5% of all realtors nationwide when it comes to product and industry knowledge. And I used that to my advantage in a marketing campaign in the late 90s, and it worked very well for me. So don't be just so-and-so the realtor. Be so-and-so with a designation. It sets you apart from the herd. And when people are looking for specialists, they want somebody who's standing apart from the herd. You may want to consider getting designations. So we're done with this chapter, and I'm going to pull up the review questions. Give me just a second. And we're on chapter tree. 1, 2, tree. Where's tree? Next page. There it is. So why don't we just go right into these Q&A right now? Number 1, the legal relationship between a broker and a seller is generally a what kind of relationship? Cafe Robusto. The legal relationship between a broker and a seller is generally a what kind of relationship? Remember we talked about agency and there was different types of agency, and I told you you're going to be this like 99.9% of the time. Well, about 57% of you got it correct. It is a special agency. You're going to be functioning as a special agent almost all the time, guys. A is correct. Number 2. A seller cannot be present for the closing. Instead, her parents will sign for her, having been given what? Gives the parents authority to sign on behalf of their child. Nice. 90% of you, Tim likes this. 90% of you got it correct. A power of attorney would do that. Yes. Number 3, the statement, a broker must be employed to recover a commission for his or her services means the statement, a broker must be employed to recover a commission for his or her services means and about 50% of you got it correct. B for boy, someone must have agreed to pay a commission to the broker for selling the property. Signed a listing agreement. Yes. Number 4, the procuring cause of a sale is, and I may have said this about 5 times in our discussion today. The procuring cause of a sale is about 1 in 3 of you got it correct. C, sometimes hard to determine. I know I said that at least 4 times today. Procuring cause is sometimes very hard to determine. Number 5, a listing may be terminated when either broker or principal Awesome. 94% of y'all got it correct. The listing may be terminated when either broker or principal B goes bankrupt. Remember bankruptcy, death, or insanity, incompetence. When retained by the seller, the broker owes a prospective buyer When retained by the seller, the broker owes a prospective buyer 51% are correct, answering C, honest treatment. Yes, honest treatment. Remember, we have to be fair in our dealings with all. Number 7, the salesperson who sincerely tries to represent both buyer and seller is practicing excuse me. 96% of you got it correct. It is C, dual agency. Well done. Number 8, a seller who wishes to cancel a listing agreement in New Jersey. Now, I didn't say it. It is in your textbook, so if you pre-read it, you would know the answer to this. And about 58% of you got it correct. C, may be held liable for money and time extended or expended by the broker. Yes. Number 9, in New Jersey, the buyer of a residential property is entitled to find out about the presence of a convicted sex offender in the neighborhood. Excuse me, boy. And about 67% of you, 2 out of 3, are correct, answering C, after the sale of the property is closed. Remember we talked about that? Number 10, what are buyers who ask to see the owner's comprehensive loss underwriting exchange looking for? The clue reports. What are they looking for? And a good 82% of you got it correct. D, insurance claims for the past 5 years. Correct. Number 11, an example of a latent defect is, even use this as an example. Remember, a latent defect is something you can't observe just by looking at something. Yeah, I thought that would make a difference. And 80% of you got it correct answering D, a malfunctioning septic system. You can't see the septic system. You don't know if it's working or not. It could be a latent defect. Number 12, an independent contractor may be paid All right, racking them scores up. Good. 94% of you got it. C, commissions on sales. Yes. 13, commissions usually are earned when? Commissions are usually earned when? And only about 42% of us got it correct. And the answer is B for boy. The seller accepts the buyer's offer without conditions. A meeting of the minds is when you have earned your commission. When the property transfers, when title transfers, that's when you get paid. Number 14. Even if a proposed transaction does not go through, the broker sometimes may collect a commission where the, again, in your textbook, I'm going to say 3 out of 4 of you, 75% of you got it correct. C, simply, the seller simply backed out. If he backs out, I'm still entitled to commission if we earned it. I'm still entitled to it. Excuse me. Number 15, a salesperson's commission on a real estate transaction is, excuse me. And well done, 97%. Boy, we're getting close to 100 on some of these things. Got it correct. A is paid within 10 days after the broker is paid on the transaction. Correct. 16, to be entitled to collect a commission on a real estate transaction, an agent must. All right, rocking this one again. Rocking it. 94% of you are agreed that A is correct to be the procuring cause of the transaction. A is correct. Number 17, The seller lists his house with a broker offering a bonus commission of $500 to the agent who brings a good buyer before Thanksgiving. An agent with a cooperating firm effects the sale on November 1st. The buyer's agent may collect the bonus from who? And about 60% of you are correct, answering C, the selling broker. Correct. C. 18, commission rates are set by and a good 68% of you are correct, answering D, agreement between the seller and the broker. Correct. Number 19, at a booth in the neighborhood coffee shop, a broker is seated with her friendly rival. Her rival says, "Did you hear about that firm that's charging a flat fee for selling property? Do you think they'll make it?" The broker's proper response is to oh, excuse me. And 70% of you correctly answered D. Point out the rival. It is a violation of federal antitrust law for competing brokers to discuss any aspect of commission rates. All right, very good. Number 20, the transaction broker represents who? The transaction broker represents 65% of you answered correctly. D, no one. Yes. And then number 21, a consumer information statement is required for transactions involving and about 44% of you are correct, answering B, 1 to 4 family dwellings. They do not apply to commercial deals, farms, or anything like that. It's only residential property. So B for boy is the only answer. 22, a dual agent cannot provide advice on 83% of you answered correctly B, the right price to accept. Yeah, you can't do that. 23, the seller may remain quiet about. Wow, we're getting there. 98% this time got it, guys. Good job. See, the previous owner's suicide. Yes. All right. Number 24, the duty of loyalty forbids the seller's broker to. The duty of loyalty forbids the seller's broker to. And about 80% of you are correct answering C, suggest an offer under the listed price. Yes. 25, when the buyer gives the seller's broker, when the buyer gives a seller's broker information about possible financing problems in completing the purchase, the broker should. "77% of you got B, inform the seller immediately." Correct. Yes. 26, if the agent in the previous question is acting as a buyer's broker, the most correct for the response for the broker is to. Not as many answers this time, huh? Very tough question. Let's see. If the agent in the previous question is acting as a buyer's broker, the most correct response for the broker is to. And about 50% of you who answered got it correct. It is B for boy. Explain to the buyer by not revealing the problem that to the seller, it may constitute concealment material defect. Yes. I even talked about that in an example. 27, negligent misrepresentation occurs when. Negligent misrepresentation occurs when 60% of you are correct answering B, the speaker should know the statement is false. If I had only researched it a little more, I could have figured it out. 28, the term realtor applies only to, and it's not realtor, it's realtor. Please don't misspeak that. The term realtor applies only to excuse me, the term realtor applies only to 55% of you only got this correct. It is C, member of a private organization. And that organization is the National Association of Realtors. And then finally, number 29, New Jersey's Consumer Fraud Act unfortunately, only about 1 in 4 of us got this one correct. The answer is C, allows exemptions from liability in some circumstances. And I actually went over those just before we did the designations. All right, good job today. Most of you guys had a very good response rate on this. Very pleased with the results. Some of you guys got some studying to do. It's obvious.